It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 32 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded on February 2nd, 2014. I'm your host, JD, aka Gaddick Teague, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about the coming year of SWTOR. The Arizona Cantina happened this week, if you didn't hear about that. And if you didn't hear about that, I don't blame you, because not much information at all came from it. I haven't been able to find any information from the Q&A. As far as I know, no one recorded it. Maybe some of the other podcasts were able to get their hands on something like that. But I really didn't see a ton of people talking about it outside of talking about who they met and who was there. And the flash drive, which usually has some juicy information about something we don't know about yet, or more detail about something we do know about, didn't really have anything at all. It had some mini pets and some random stuff. So overall, this wasn't a very exciting cantina. I'm sure it was great for anyone who was there. As I've said before, the cantinas are excellent events. I love the cantinas. I think they're a great program for BioWare to do. I think it's really cool that they go out and actually meet the fans, and the fans get to mingle with each other. So if you haven't been to one, I definitely suggest you try them out, even if this one wasn't necessarily so information heavy as other ones have been. So the only real information we got was that they're working on a state of the game style post, and hopefully that will be released Monday, which is tomorrow as of recording this. So hopefully they'll be giving us some ideas of what we can expect in the coming year. And in light of that, I will be discussing what I think we can expect in the coming year. I've broken the year down into 6 8-week content cycles, and I'll discuss what I think we can expect in each one of those. On top of that, I'll be talking about what you can do to get into operations. If you're new to operations, never tried them before, I think now's a great time to try them. So I'll be talking about how you can do that and how you can make it easy on yourself and easy on everyone else. So with all that being said, let's force leap right in. Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot, requesting clearance to engage.
Lock S-foils and attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
2014 could go a lot of different ways for SWTOR, and I think Monday's post will be very interesting if it does indeed go up Monday. I'll expect Tuesday or Wednesday, knowing BioWare's usual style with these type of things. And I think that it could be a very good year for SWTOR if they make some obvious changes that I think would really help the community. But I think it could also go very wrong. We heard from the last whatever it was with EA, I forget what they're called, the investor call. The last investor call that subs are down to SWTOR. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's making less money. They could be making more money on free-to-play style stuff for those players who drop their sub but go to free-to-play, even though they're probably spending more money in the free-to-play model. That's possible. But I think the state of the game is going to be very interesting, and I hope they do lay out a content release schedule that we can all get behind. Now, when I spoke to Damien Schubert at the canteen, actually it may have been Andrew Horowitz that said this. It was either Damien or Andrew, and they were talking about the 8-week content release cycle, and they said that's something they'd be reviewing early this year. So maybe that this is their time that they'll be telling us that they're moving away from the 8-week content release cycle. But who knows? They said they were reevaluating and they would make a decision early this year as to what they will be doing with that. Assuming we do have an 8-week content release cycle going forward, we can expect 6 major updates this year. February, if we just go 8 weeks straight from February 4th, which is this Tuesday, we know patch 2.6 will be released. We've talked a lot about that. So February 4th, and then next would be April 1st, April Fool's Day. Maybe we'll get something funny on that day. May 27th, July 22nd, September 16th, and November 11th. Now, the way I went about figuring out what I think we can see in each of these content updates is I tried to be reasonable. I tried to give BioWare a lot of leeway as to what I think they can do. So, while I think that it would be awesome, I know we're not getting a new operation on Tuesday, so it would be awesome if on April 1st we got a whole new operation with all sorts of new crazy cool stuff, as I'll talk about. I don't think that's feasible knowing BioWare's schedule, so I'm trying to be reasonable here. I'm trying to make it realistic as to what I think we will actually expect. So February 4th we know. It's the full release of Galactic Starfighter. They're adding Deathmatch to Galactic Starfighter. They have the Kuat drive yards and all the class changes that they've done. I think that this is a solid update. It doesn't do anything major to the two cornerstones of MMOs, the player versus player and the player versus environment. And when I talk about player versus environment here, I mean operations. Flashpoints are great, but I've never seen an MMO just thrive on flashpoints alone. Small group PvE content is not something that generally makes an MMO soar. MMOs really thrive on the bigger scale PvE, fight the dragon with 100 players type of environment. I think that's really what I mean. I think that's really what MMOs can strive on. I don't know if this small group PvE can really do that. So I think it's a decent update. I think it's great that they're continuing to support Galactic Starfighter with a new mode, which is a new map. That was confirmed by, I heard on the OtiniCast that a couple of listeners were able to actually get on the PTS and get a match in there, and they confirmed it was a new map with all sorts of power-ups and all that good stuff. So great on them for continuing to support GS. I think that's now the third cornerstone of SWTOR. You have the player versus player, player versus environment, and now you have Galactic Starfighter as your third pillar of this MMO. And you have all the class changes that they've done. And the class changes, for the most part, I think have been solid and very, maybe not well received, but I think from people that know what they're talking about, they get behind these class changes. So they've done a good job there. And hopefully they continue to release class changes like this on a more frequent basis, unlike they've been doing in the past. So that's the one we know. So let's talk about where I can start to extrapolate what we'll see. And on top of this, I want to say that the events that we have had already, the Grey event, the Bounty Contract Week, and the Rakul Plague, I'm not going to include on this list. We can assume that they'll sprinkle those in over time, fill in some gaps here. So I'm not including those as new content releases, because they're not new content. They're old content. We've seen them already. And while I think it's great that they'll be able to spice up the game going forward as they add more and more events, they can keep switching around what's active, what's not, and I think that's cool. They're not new, so we can't count them as new releases. So April 1st. April 1st, we believe, for the most part, that will be the end of Ranked Season 1. This will be patch 2.7. I think that's pretty... I think that's almost confirmed. I wasn't able to actually find that date confirmed anywhere, but when they released Ranked PvP Season 1, they said it would be around a 6-month season, so it would make sense that this would be the end of Ranked Season 1. Now, I think on top of that Ranked Season 1, I think we'll see the new Hotball map as a kind of... Well, we're in preseason now, so we know a lot of people aren't going to be doing Ranked PvP, even though a lot of people aren't doing Ranked PvP anyway, but let's not go there. So go ahead and try out this new Hotball map. We know that a lot of you guys really love Hotball, so here's a new map for you to play in the meantime. So I think that's something we can see. We know one's coming from all the teasers they've done, that it's probably going to be on Quesh. So April 1st, I think, is when we'll see that. And then on top of that, and like I said, as much as I'd like to say there's a new operation here, I think we'll see the Nightmare Mode operations for Dread Fortress and Dread Palace. This kind of meshes with how they handled the Nightmare Modes for Terror from Beyond and Scum and Villainy. It's kind of that same time frame from when they're released, when they get their Nightmare Mode, and it also kind of splits the gap between two operations tiers. While I've railed against this in the past, I think that they should really work on getting a new operation out instead of the Nightmare Mode, and then work on the Nightmare Mode after that. I think we'll get the reverse of that here. So, moving on to May 27th. May 27th will be patch 2.8 if we continue our numbering. I think we will see a new operation. I think this will be another very well-polished operation like the one we have now, which is something that they've done a good job on. I think that Terror from Beyond... Let's forget about bugs, but bugs happen in every operation ever released. If we look at Terror from Beyond, we look at Scum and Villainy, we look at Dread Fortress, Dread Palace, they're all very well polished. And they've been getting even more polished as they continue releasing them and getting better at releasing them. So I think we'll see another operation here. And I think we'll see with it a new planet. I think we'll see an Oricon-style planet. I think Oricon went over... I think it did gangbusters with the community. I think people loved Oricon with the new operation. And while it has its problems, like not being able to get its quick travel points working ever, I think the new planet with new operation is going to be the gold standard going forward, and what we'll see going forward. I think it will set up the next big conflict in the galaxy. We'll see what the new bad guy is going to be for the foreseeable future, and I think that's cool. I think we'll find out what the new conflict is going to be in the galaxy. We'll find out who the new big bad guy at the end of the tunnel is going to be, and then we'll be fighting him for several patches, and that will be where we go. Who that will be, I don't know. What planet it will be, don't know. But I think that that's something really cool that they have been doing. So I have to give them props for doing a really good job releasing polished content like the planet with operation, like they did with Dread Fortress and Dread Palace. I thought they did a great job with that. Now, personally, I would have split up those two. If they had released Dread Fortress and then Dread Palace, one content cycle apart from each other, I think that would have been fine. I think it would have been cool having to open up the second operation, but it probably wasn't ready to go, and they probably would have done that if they could have. So maybe we'll see something like that in 2.7 and 2.8. We'll see one operation with one nightmare mode and then another new operation with another old nightmare mode. That would be cool. I would definitely accept that as a way to release content well. And then on top of the new operation with the new planet, I think we'll see the assault map released on Galactic Starfighter. This was something we've seen from the achievements that were on the public test server, and I think this will be the last, major update to Galactic Starfighter in its infancy period. I think after we get 3 different gameplay styles, I think then we can really consider Galactic Starfighter a full-fledged release. We'll probably see a new map with that. So then we'll have 4 maps with 3 modes, and then I think we're really off and running with Galactic Starfighter. So that will be in patch 2.8 on May 27th. Then, if we go out to July 22nd, now we're starting to get really far out there, so I'm kind of making stuff up and just kind of seeing patterns where I can. This will be patch 2.9. I think we'll see the start of Season 2 ranked PvP. This will still be 4v4. I don't think we'll see 8v8 ranked ever again. I think that's just a foregone conclusion and an afterthought to Bioware. I don't think they'll ever be going back to that. It's just too much work and too little to gain from it. We will see 2 new arena maps, I think, with this. I think that's how they're going to jazz up Season 2, as well as announcing rewards off the bat. I think if they do it right, they'll really learn from Season 1, and if they learn from Season 1, I think they can make a really compelling and really good Season 2. So I think we'll see 2 new arena maps, rewards announced right away. We'll see thresholds, like ranking thresholds that lead to different rewards like you kind of get in League of Legends. So I think that's something really cool that we could see. I also think that patch 2.9 will be a big quality of life update. So the release of Season 2 won't be a ton of stuff for them. That's not a ton of content. It's the start of a season, and if we get 2 new maps, that's cool. But that really isn't much on the way of, stuff for them to do. And I know that's always scary to say that. But I think that with this patch, we could see some major guild feature updates. I think this could be a patch that really revamps guild features for us and possibly add guild capital ships. That's really crazy. And I didn't even add that to my notes, but I think we could see the things like guild calendar, guild mail, all that sort of stuff could be in a patch like this where we don't have a ton of other content. We just get the quality of life dump, because they've done that before. They've done the quality of life dump before in patches, and I think this July 22nd patch 2.9 could be where we get that. And then I think in this time frame, either patch 2.9 or patch 2.10, patch 2.10, which will be on September 16th, I think somewhere in there we will see a new event, something we haven't seen before. So this will be the 4th recurring event. I think this will be a recurring event, and then we'll have 4 events that kind of cycle in and out. I have no idea what it could be. I don't even want to speculate on that, but I think we'll see a new event in this time frame. Then we have September 16th, patch 2.9. Oh, no, sorry. This would be patch 2.10 if we continue on our numbering system. And here we have September 16th. We could see the nightmare modes of the new operations that we saw in patch 2.8. Kind of fits the time frame. Could be pushed another patch forward, but you'll see why I say that they'll be here and not in November 11th in a second. So I think we'll see the nightmare modes and the new operations. I think we'll get at least one new tactical flashpoint here. I think they're really pushing tactical flashpoints. I think they're cool ideas, and I think they're good ways to get a lot of different players into a Flashpoint, because the queues can be rather long if you're leveling a new character. So I think we'll see another new tactical Flashpoint, and I think we'll see a new type of Warzone here. I think this will be something that we haven't seen before, and I'll talk about in my Wall of Crazy topic. Some people have given me suggestions for what they like to see out of a new Warzone, but I think this is a place where we could get something new and different. Not a new Hutball map, not a new Assault map or whatever. I think we'll see something completely new here. And then finally, November 11th, I think will be a very interesting time. I think this is the time frame where people think we could see a full-fledged expansion. What I'm going to say is going to happen, what I'll predict is going to happen, is that November 11th will be very, very slim on actual content. Maybe we'll see some bug fixes, things like that. But I think what we will see is a global event. And this is what I think a global event could be. And now I'm really going off the deep end. But I think a new global event on November 11th, patch 2.11, would be a one-off thing. This is where they actually burn some code. And I know that they say they can't do that, but I think this is why I think they could do it. I think this could be the lead-up event to a new full-fledged expansion coming in the new year. So I don't think we'll see an expansion this year. A full box, not a box. We're never seeing a box expansion, but I don't think we'll see a full-on expansion coming this year. Galactic Starfighter was kind of their expansion, and I think we'll see another one early next year. So November 11th, I think they'll release some kind of crazy event that really sets up the new expansion. Whatever happens in the new expansion, this will be the setup for it, the lead up for it. I know WoW does this before every expansion. They have some kind of crazy one-off event, and I think SWTOR should really follow suit with that and do something cool, new global event, something crazy, something with a planet that explodes at the end of the event, or something where you're assaulting the enemy capital, something insane and crazy. I think this is the time to do it. Everything I've said so far is kind of standard MMO fare to the mold, a little bit of Galactic Starfighter here and there, but I think that November 11th, they have a full year to ramp up to this, and I think this is the time, and this is the place where we should see something crazy and new leading up to a full box expansion. We'll get 5 new levels, new planet, all that good stuff, and I think they should be working on this as part of the expansion, and I think that's why they can afford to burn code here, because the next expansion we're going to pay for. There was, I forgot where I heard about that, but I think they said somewhere that anytime there is going to be a full-on MMO style expansion with an increase in level cap, we're going to pay for that. So if we're paying for that, I think they can afford to do something cool, like a one-off event that we never see again. So that's how I think this year breaks down. We'll see what they say on Monday. Tell me what you think. Obviously, I want to hear from you guys. You can always email me, and now, new email address here. I finally set up my real email address, no more Gmail. You can send your emails to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com. So, gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com. Pretty easy one there, I think. Or you can always tweet me at gteague on Twitter, GTEEG on Twitter. And I want to hear from you. What do you think we can expect from the coming year, and what is your content release schedule that you would like to see, and what is your content schedule that you think we could actually see? So that was a rather long segment there, but I think I got a lot off my chest. I think I got a lot of information from a day that I didn't think I'd have a lot to talk about, seeing as the cantina was so dead. But I think that was a pretty good one. After the break, we're going to talk about operations in response to a post I saw on the subreddit about how you can get into operations if you've never done one before. So let's talk operations. Now, I may make this into a series of discussions about all different aspects of the game and how you can get into them. But here I want to talk about ops specifically because I've seen several posts on the SWTOR subreddit this week discussing how you can get into them, what to do once you do get into them, etc., etc. So first of all, I want to say that yes, getting into an operation the first time can definitely be intimidating. I remember my first time in a raid scenario was in Wrath of the Lich King. I had played MMOs before that. I had played WoW before that, but I was always too intimidated or didn't really know how to get into a raid situation, so I kind of just avoided them. I did some 4-mans, 5-mans, things like that, but I never really raided it until Wrath of the Lich King. I was like, alright, I'm doing this. I'm going to rip the band-aid off. And I was nervous, but if you are avoiding doing operations because you're nervous, I highly encourage you to give it a try. Because it really isn't that bad, and if you've been playing the game all the way to 55, if you didn't buy your character, basically, then you have a pretty good chance of doing just fine in a story mode operation scenario. So let's talk about the basics of how you can go about getting into one. For your first operation, I think that the easiest and most effective way for any person to get into any style of operation is to find a guild. Guilds are the lifeblood of MMOs, and if you're avoiding a guild because you think everyone on the internet is a dick, well, everyone on the internet is a dick, but not to everyone. And if you find a good guild that fits your playstyle and fits your schedule, things like that, a guild is a great place to start. They will get you involved. If it's a good guild, they'll get you involved. They'll show you the ropes. They'll try and make it easy for you because a good player is as sought after as a good guild is. So getting into a guild is a great place to start. Now, if you're not going to go that route, and I know some people just don't want to go that route because of their schedule is so infrequent. They can raid so infrequently because their schedule is so messed up, or you really just don't like people. If you don't like people, I don't know why you're doing an operation, but if you want to give it a try without going the guild route, here's what I suggest you do. First off, you want to find a 16-man story mode. These are, in general, the easiest operations you can do. With 16 people, a single person, it's harder for a single person to wipe a 16-man operation than it is to wipe an 8-man. In 8-man, there are several fights where a single person doing the wrong thing could screw you all up. So, you want to find yourself a 16-man story mode. You're also going to want to find out which operations you want to do. The story mode level is all based around the same level of gear and the same difficulty, basically. The most recent ones are a little bit more difficult than the earlier ones, but they're all doable even for your first operation. So if you want to do Terror from Beyond, which is kind of spacey, sci-fi-y, you can do that. If you want to do Scum and Villainy, which is a little bit more Star Wars-y, it's probably the most Star Wars-y of the current tier of operations, you can try that one out. Or if you want to see the newest, the latest hotness with the big bad wolf of the current storyline of the game, then you can try Dread Fortress or Dread Palace, while I probably would say Dread Fortress is slightly easier. Alright, next up. What you're going to want to do is read up on some guide. There are several places where you can find guides. Dolphy has a great set of guides, so I'm going to suggest hers. For a new person, you're going to want to find a guide and just read up on the fights. And you want to find out what each boss does and where you need to be, things like that. A written guide is not necessarily going to be the best way to learn. And videos out there aren't great video guides. I have the video guide series with the hard modes, so they won't necessarily help you a ton. They may help you a little bit, though, if you want to watch those. But I know if you're trying to jump in an op and you're afraid to jump in an op, you probably won't even know what you're looking at when you're looking at a kill video. So those aren't really the best places to go. Alright. Now you figured out where you want to go, which operation, what sounds coolest to you, and I suggest that you pick them by what sounds coolest since the difficulty is pretty much similar. Now, you want to make sure that you're relatively well geared for the content that you're going to be doing. You should be in all 66s and probably some 69s thrown in there. Make sure you have implants, make sure you have an earpiece, make sure you have 2 relics. You can find all of these things on the GTN. The relics, even if you're using the relic you just got from the Rackle event, that's just fine for a story mode. And if you're a fresh 55, that might be your best relic you find if you're not running a ton of flashpoints over and over and over again. So you've got your gear set, now you want to pick a role. And for your first operation, I would highly advise against going as a tank. The tank role, in my opinion, is the easiest role of anything you can do in an operation, but your first time doing an operation, you definitely don't want to be the tank, because the tank is the linchpin of your group. If a tank screws up, he could easily lose aggro or do something stupid and kill the whole raid. So I would not go as a tank the first time. Easiest role would probably be a DPS. The DPS, all you have to do, your goal is to kill things. And the added bonus of playing a DPS in a 16-man is, for the most part, you can pick someone experienced and just do what they do. Follow them around, DPS what they're DPSing, stop when they stop, etc., etc. So that's the advantage of being a DPS. If you're used to being a healer, if you leveled up as a healer in Flashpoints, that is also a completely valid thing to do, especially in a 16-man. The other more geared, more experienced healers can pick up the slack for you. Now, when you get into the group, what you definitely need to do, you found a pug now, or you're in your guild group, and you're going into the operation that you want, and it's 16-man. First thing you need to do is whisper the leader, if you don't want to say it in group chat. I know that can definitely be intimidating, but you whisper the leader and say, hey, this is my first time going, can you please let me know what I need to do, things like that. So you say that to the leader, and if it's a good leader, he'll say, fine, that's fine, I'll help you out, I'll tell you where you need to stand, tell you who you need to follow, things like that. So that's the mark of a good leader. A good leader will be very receptive to a new player, especially in a 16-man story mode, where for the most part, they're comms runs for people who are very well geared. If the leader is like, well, noob, you suck, I'm not telling you anything, learn to play, then that's a group you don't want to be in, so get the hell out of there. That's why you can also say it in ops chat. Say, I'm new at this, guys, I'm sorry if I screw up, but if you could help me out, that would be great. And most of the time, for the most part, you'll be surprised how accepting groups will be to that. If you are upfront with them, they will be very upfront with you, and they will usually be very helpful to you. What a lot of players, myself included, hate is when a player goes in and pretends like they've done it before, even though they clearly haven't. I am more than happy to help out someone who says, I'm new at this, I need some help, can you help me out? I love explaining fights to people. That's why I started doing the video guide series. I love doing that. But if you say nothing, if you just sit there and act like you've been there before because you don't want to let people know that you're a noob, that you're new to this, then that's when I'm going to be upset with you. Just be outright with people. And like I said, if they are not accepting of that, well, they're probably not the group you want to be running with anyway. So just be very upfront. That is the #1 advice I give to people who are just trying out operations. You want to be upfront with how experienced and skilled you are. So now that you're in the 16-man group, you're going to see that it's actually very similar to a 4-man. It's just multiplied by 4. So you end up with 16 people instead of 4 people. You're going to have your 2 tanks generally. Sometimes 16-mans will run with 3 tanks. But generally, you'll be running with 2 tanks, you'll have 4 healers, and you will have 10 DPS. That's how a usual 16-man group composition works. So if you're one of the DPS, there are 9 other people there. There's probably someone else of your class, so if you just give them a whisper, ask for some tips, they'll probably be more than willing to help you out. If you are a healer, same deal, just whisper another healer, ask them who they want you to be on, who you need to be healing, what you need to be cleansing, and they will help you out. Now, if you're new to an operation, there are some things that you may want to do to your UI before you go in there. You're definitely going to want to go into your UI customization and click on your bar, your enemies' bars, and any other bars like that, your ops frames, and make sure that the show detailed information checkbox is checked. This will show you the actual written out number of health out of number of health. This is an important thing for operations, just because knowing how much health a boss has. If a boss has 100,000 HP, you know that you can do a hard burn on that boss with 5 or 6 people alive. So if things are going downhill, you see 100,000 HP, you just go burn whole hog on that. Things like that. So having that number actually on is important. Also, a lot of things are based on percentages. A lot of effects will be based on percentages, so you want to be able to see that as well. Another thing you want to turn on. You want to turn on target of target. This is important because target of target lets you know who, if you're targeting the boss, who they are targeting, or if you're targeting a tank, you'll be able to see the boss. So healers usually targeting tanks or players that are targeting the boss, so that lets you see the boss's health and percentage. And if you're targeting the boss as a DPS, you can see who the boss is actually hitting. So if you are a DPS and you see yourself in the target of target box, you know you need to drop aggro. And that's something that you definitely want to be doing as a DPS and as a healer. Occasionally you want to be doing this too, is use your drop aggro ability, your hands up, drop your change, your throw out your flares, things like that. You want to be dropping aggro. But that's something I'll do. This sounds like I should make it a series. I'm already at 13 minutes right now, and I've only started scratching the surface. But so you want to make sure that the target of target bar is on. You also want to go into your options and click enable focus target, and then put your operations frames on and put focus target on. This is important because it allows you to put a focus on someone, and the default for that is Alt F. If you hit Alt F, the player's frames or the boss's frames, wherever you're putting on focus target, will be popped up in a separate box. So this is important. If you're a DPS, you probably want to put it on the boss because there's a lot of fights you'll be DPSing different things that aren't the boss, but want to be able to switch back to the boss quickly. So you want to put them on the focus target. If you're a healer, you might want to put a specific tank, the one who's doing the main tanking, on your bars. So that's how I'd go about doing that. So if you do all that, you're probably all set to go into your operations. Again, like I said, don't be afraid. Don't be scared. It's really not that bad. If you've done 4-man content, you can do 8-man content, you can do 16-man content. Just be very upfront, very truthful, ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. A good group is happy to answer questions and pissed off to wipe, so just ask as many questions as you can and be very forthright, especially with the leader, whoever's running the operation. So I'm going to stop here. Maybe next week or whenever I don't have much to talk about, I'll talk about specific terms that you'll need to know, specific gear, or maybe even specific fights, I don't know. We'll see where this goes, but number one thing, if you want to get into an operation but you're too scared to try it, I really encourage you to try it, because operations are a lot of fun, so give it a shot. I think that'll about do it for discussion this week, and with that, we will look at the Wall of Crazy.
What? That's impossible even for a computer! It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
This week's Wall of Crazy topic, I asked you, the listener, on Twitter, to design or give me the basis of a new Warzone that we could see added, as I think will be added September 16th, patch 2.11. And I got a bunch of awesome responses, and as always, thank you so much for responding. I've selected 2 of them based on the ones I like the best, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you had bad suggestions. I just like these 2 because they're different and very cool ideas. And thank you very much for submitting your suggestions for the Wall of Crazy. Who knows, maybe next week I'll really like your suggestions, so keep sending them when I keep asking for them on Twitter. So the first one comes from Madmar at SWTOR Family. If you don't know Madmar, I highly suggest you follow at SWTOR Family. He retweets and favorites all sorts of SWTOR goodness. So he says he wants war zones with battle mounts, thinking Battlefield 4 style. From armored tauntauns to firebrand tank. From armored tauntauns to firebrand style tanks, destructible bases. And while this is on the far out spectrum of insane, I think it would be really cool. And while I don't think we'll see Battlefield 4 style, I do think it's possible to see something like Winter Grasp. And if you look at Wrath of the Lich King, something that they changed really drastically there is that they added in the mount style combat, where you basically get into a mount and it changes all of your abilities and all that stuff. And I think that's something that could be done really well in SWTOR if they added that. And it would work really well in a Warzone design like that, where you had tanks going around the battlefield, zooming around. I don't know if we could ever see this in an 8v8. Maybe we could see an 8v8 where there's only 2 tanks, or 1 tank and 1 something else, or everyone gets an armored tauntaun, but they're just as good being on foot. They have different uses, things like that. So I think that's something really cool that hopefully we could see added in the game. And then the other one that caught my eye was from, let's see if I can find it here. Now that I'm looking, of course I won't be able to find it. Oh, it was from the @BadFeeling Podcast. @BadFeeling Podcast. He says, an invasion of Normandy scenario where attackers can respawn but defenders cannot. Defense gets buffs, etc. And I think this is really cool, especially because this is kind of random, but in Halo, one of my favorite maps or mods in Halo was a Invasion of Normandy style map where explosions would fall from the ceiling and blow up and kind of simulate being shelled. There was a big wall that you had to scale, and there really was an objective because I don't think, oh no, it was capture the flag style. You had to go into the wall, grab the flag, and run out with it. But it was a really fun map, and I think something like that added to a Warzone could be really cool and done in a really good Star Wars style, kind of like we saw in Explosive Conflict. The entrance to that kind of looks like the Invasion of Normandy, so we could see something like that added to a Warzone. I think we'd be in good shape. And I think that about does it for the show. I will pick the winner for the tauntaun code I gave away last week, and a lot of you reported me to the ASPCA for murdering that last tauntaun, so I'm glad I got a lot of responses, or I would have had to do it again. This week's winner is the Bede Legacy @the Bede Legacy, so check your inbox. I will have sent you a tauntaun code for you to use. Congratulations. Next week, if you would like to win a tauntaun code, all you have to do is tweet @GT with the hashtag tauntaun and tell me what you would like to see this year from SWTOR. Just one, what do you think the biggest feature that you would like to see added this year? As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, and concerns to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, new email, gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter, @GTEEG on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast updates, and if you're new to the game or think you're resubscribing, I've provided my refer friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, gaddockgaming.com, where I post all my videos, the podcast, and anything else I decide to put up there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off.